The Colombian peace process refers to the peace process between the Colombian government of President Juan Manuel Santos and the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia to bring an end to the Colombian conflict. Negotiations began in September 2012 and mainly took place in Havana, Cuba. Negotiators announced a final agreement to end the conflict and build a lasting peace on August 24, 2016. However, a referendum to ratify the deal on October 2, 2016 was unsuccessful after 50.2% of voters voted against the agreement with 49.8% voting in favor. Afterward, the Colombian government and the FARC signed a revised peace deal on November 24 and sent it to Congress for ratification instead of conducting a second referendum. Both houses of Congress ratified the revised peace agreement on November 29 to 30, 2016, thus marking an end to the conflict. The Colombian-Armed Conflict is the oldest ongoing armed conflict in the Americas. Beginning, by some measures, in 1964 with the creation of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, the largest of left-wing guerrillas groups which have operated in the country. In 1990 and 1991, peace negotiations with several smaller guerrilla movements resulted in their demobilization and transformation into civilian political actors. The first guerrilla group to demobilize following a peace agreement with the Colombian government was the 19th of April movement. However, repeated attempts at finding a negotiated settlement through formal peace talks between the government and the FARC have all been unsuccessful. Prior to the current peace process, the most recent attempt at peace talks with the FARC was the 1999 to 2002 peace process under the government of President Andrés Pastrana, who had conceded a demilitarized zone to the FARC to facilitate peace talks within Colombian territory. Although the peace process continued for 3 years, no kind of agreement was reached between the two sides. Pastrana formally broke off all talks and ordered the military to retake control of the demilitarized zone on February 20, 2002. A few months before the 2002 presidential elections, the FARC had used the demilitarized zone as a safe zone to keep hostages, negotiate prisoner exchanges, train troops and plan offensive actions. 167 to 169 The paralyzed peace process coincided with an escalation of the conflict, owing to a variety of factors including the rapid numerical and geographic expansion of paramilitary groups such as the United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia. In addition, there were 390 attacks on civilian settlements, the majority of them by the FARC. Over 3,000 kidnappings each year between 1998 and 2002 and 898 massacres, mostly committed by paramilitary groups killing over 5,400 people. Widespread popular frustration and disillusion with the peace process led to the election of Álvaro Uribe in May 2002. On a hawkish platform opposing any future dialogue without a prior cessation of hostilities and terrorist activities. As president, Uribe formalized these views in his policy of democratic security, which redefined the conflict against the left-wing guerrillas as a war against terrorism and drug trafficking and vowed to implacably punish acts of terror, dismantle terrorist organizations and reassert the state's presence throughout the territory. As companion policies, Uribe adopted several individual and collective demobilization programs, promising pardons for political crimes and humanitarian assistance to fighters who submitted to its conditions. These decrees and laws, alongside the contentious justice and peace law, formed the legal basis for the demobilization of paramilitary groups between 2003 and 2006. As the FARC rejected Uribe's new policies, the government unleashed a large-scale military, political and judicial offensive against the guerrillas, resulting in a drastic reduction of their military capacity, albeit at the cost of grave human rights violations by the armed forces. 178 to 179 The state's offensive forced the FARC to retreat to their hinterland, and achieved significant results such as securing the country's main roadways, a reduction in the number of kidnappings, a substantial drop in the homicide rate and the recovery of government authority in several regions of the country. 180 taken on the whole. These well-publicized results made Uribe extremely popular and granted him sufficient political capital to successfully seek congressional approval of a constitutional amendment allowing him to run for a second consecutive term in 2006. However, while the army and the police's operations recovered control of regions where the guerrillas had expanded their influence during the 1980s and 1990s, the FARC displayed a capacity to reaccommodate and reactivate themselves militarily in new strategic hinterland and border regions. 181 The FARC showed their military resilience through terrorist attacks in urban environments and a counteroffensive in 2005. Álvaro Uribe was